The way to think of startup ideas is not to try to think of startup ideas. But most of us are not Steve Jobs. And so most of us need to move our product to better align with the market. And then we'll change the name of the app to, I don't know, Instagram. We'll see what happens. Only to find out that customers didn't think it was that awesome. I should have taken that $5 million. I should have just put it in the bank. See all kinds of evidence around us that our idea is incredibly awesome. And we tend to ignore all the evidence to the contrary when everyone is lying to you. Because if you want affirmation, you can get that from your mom. When do you know when to quit your day job and go all in on the startup idea?
Bret, I would love to start off asking you, could you do a 90 second pitch about who you are, what you have done, and why this podcast is going to be amazing and we should listen to you?
Well, I don't know why you should listen to me, but I can tell you about myself. So I'm Bret Waters. I've spent my entire life in Silicon Valley. I have been founder and CEO of 3 different software companies. And today I teach entrepreneurship at Stanford University. I teach one course that is about getting from a startup idea to a launched business and a funded business, and a second course that is about getting from there to scale, because those are kind of 2 different processes. And I recently wrote a book called The Launch Path, which is all about how to get from a startup idea to a launched and successful business. And that's me. I'm happy to be here.
Let's go. That was great. That was a great intro, by the way. That was a great intro. Many things there to take from. So how do you find a good startup idea? What will be your advice to somebody who is like, don't yet have an idea? What will be that advice?
Yeah. So there's a great essay by Paul Graham, the co-founder of Y Combinator, very famous Silicon Valley startup accelerator. And he says in the essay, that the way to think of startup ideas is not to try to think of startup ideas. The way to do it is to notice problems worth solving. And that's where most great startups begin, is with a founder who notices a problem worth solving and then falls in love with creating a startup that will solve that problem.
What are some places to look for problems? What do you have seen nowadays? Because nowadays I can imagine some entrepreneurs are like asking ChatGPT, what are problems for roofers? What are problems for chiropractors? What are some of the things you have seen? Kind of to find them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the best ones are ones that come from your own, just your own life. So Airbnb was founded by 3 guys. They had an apartment in San Francisco. Rent is expensive in San Francisco, and so they wanted to rent out their extra bedroom. And so they put an air mattress in their extra bedroom and put up an ad saying, hey, if you need a place to stay for a couple of nights, we'd like to rent out an extra bedroom. And so, they just noticed the problem we're solving, which is there's lots of places where you could book hotels, but there weren't any places where you could go just book a room in somebody's house. Uber was founded by a group of guys. They spent $800 to hire a black car and driver for some event, and they were chatting with the driver, and the driver talked about how much downtime he had, that he would, he'd make money taking rich people somewhere, and then he'd have to sit for the next 6 hours waiting for the next person to call him needing a ride. And they said, well, there's a problem we're solving. So there's lots and lots of examples of this, right? That most great startups begin with a founder who just when they're going through everyday life, they notice a problem we're solving.
What in your opinion is product market fit? And why am I asking this question? So I had Baltic's biggest venture fund person, Praktika. It's a company in Baltics. He was like 3 hours ago here. So he was saying it's like 5, maybe 10,000 MRR per month. And then I had one seminar where it was like 50K a month at least. And that's kind of considered product market fit. And I'm like, what is it in your opinion? What is product market fit?
Well, the concept of product market fit is very simple, right? Which is getting a fit between what your product does and what the market wants. And that, the mythical Steve Jobs was able to move the market to align with his product. But most of us are not Steve Jobs. And so most of us need to move our product to better align with the market. So very simple concept. Now, what you're asking is, can you quantify it by saying that product market fit equals, MRR of X? And I don't think that's possible because there's so many different kinds of businesses. And so saying that, product market fit equals, MRR or ARR of X, I don't think is exactly right, because product market fit for a restaurant is quite different than product market fit for Open API and Anthropic.
Makes sense. What about like tech startups, SaaS businesses? For them, what have you seen to be working currently as a go-to-market strategy? I have seen many businesses, of course, utilize TikTok, viral videos, showcasing the product, getting a lot of traffic that way. I see businesses using this like new era of Google, which is the chat era, which is like ChatGPT and these other models where you ask questions and it basically gives you the answer, and that's the solution you go for. What have you seen? Because you're in Silicon Valley, that is the place where I think a lot of innovation happen. What have you seen to be like hot new go-to-market strategies for kind of these early stage companies?
Well, so obviously, social media, the various social media properties, can be a great way to get awareness, get followers, get people who are interested in your product, interested in the sector, et cetera. But the trap you fall into is that, getting 100,000 likes or followers feels great, but what actually matters is paying customers, right? And so social media can be a great way to create awareness around your product, but you need to be a little careful of the fact that, ultimately proof of product market fit has to do with customers who are happily paying for your product, right? That is ultimately the proof of product market fit is just one thing, which is customers who love your product and love it enough that they're paying for it. And so, always think about, what is the subset of the world of customers where if we can just get them using it, they will help us to evangelize it to others. And that's the best go-to-market strategy, is to successfully identify that eager group of early adopter customers where they not only will they buy it and pay for it and love it, but they will help you to evangelize and tell everybody else about it. That's kind of the key thing in go-to-market strategies, identifying that high value subset of the universe of customers.
Isn't it typically that you need to incentivize to do something like that? And they're like, typically, do they also themselves kind of do it? Okay, I can imagine some word of mouth, but it's like not so fast paced what we're looking for, right? Have you seen some tactics around that? How to get them to spread the word faster?
Well, you can incentivize, you can have referral programs, you can do all of that stuff. But ultimately, what's most important of all is customers that are so happy and getting so much value out of the product that they are naturally telling others. I mean, that's where the value comes from. So Zoom, you remember when Zoom launched, there were a whole bunch of other video call platforms out there, right? There was WebEx, there was GoToMeeting, there was Avaya, there was BlueJeans, there was FaceTime, there was Google Meet. Nobody thought that the world needed another video call platform. And Eric Young identified that universities would be a good beachhead market for him. If we can just get the universities to start using our product, that university students, every year, a bunch of new university students graduate. And if they graduate and get a job and tell their boss at their new company about this cool video platform they were using at university and how easy it was to share and use, that would end up becoming the beachhead market that would drive Zoom to success. And so it's a great case study because, as I said, there were a whole bunch of other video platforms. And Zoom ended up taking over the market because they successfully identified that one subset of the market that would be eager and that would evangelize to others, and that was university students.
Wow, the concept is called beachhead strategy. I have never heard about that. Very interesting topic.
Yeah. So beachhead market. So look it up. So the term beachhead comes from military operations where, so during the D-Day landing in Europe, they identified certain beaches. Well, we'll take those beaches first, and then once we own those beaches, then that'll allow us to expand our operations from there. That's where the term comes from.
Interesting, very interesting. What is your kind of familiarity with this kind of huge trend, of course, artificial intelligence, and in a sense of startups just focusing just on that? I have heard some opinions that, hey, it is a feature, not a product. And then there are some other people who are saying, no, you need to do it like just the product is AI, like first how do you say it? Basically, AI first company, not AI as a feature. So what do you think about this? And what's your opinion on this kind of topic?
Yeah, I can answer this very simply, which is that software has been getting smarter and smarter for 50 years, right? For 50 years, software has been getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And the current Gen AI thing, so LLMs and generative AI, it's definitely a big deal. I mean, it's a step function on this longer curve of software getting smarter and smarter. But ultimately, it's just one step function along a much longer curve. And so my prediction is that 3 or 4 years from now, nobody's going to be talking about AI as a separate category. It's just all smart software. And the expectation is that any software that we touch should have AI inside of it, right? In the same way that nobody talks about semiconductors anymore, but semiconductors are inside of everything we touch. All of our computers and all of our phones, are powered by semiconductors. But nobody talks about them anymore as being a separate category. And AI is the same. To me, AI is the same thing. That 3 or 4 years from now, nobody's going to talk about AI as a separate category. It's just simply smart software. And the expectation is that LLMs and other kinds of models are part of what's driving the smart software that we use. And so right now, you can differentiate yourself maybe by having a .ai domain name. But I guarantee you that 3 years from now, having a .ai domain name will not provide any differentiation for you. It's just software.
Wow, I love this idea, Brett. Very good idea. I have a specific question about my maybe situation. So I have a software product launched, have already 40 customers, paying customers. In trial, I think it's like right now 90 customers, 40 customers paying. And I want to pivot my idea. So the initial idea of the product, I want to pivot. And when I mean pivot, I want to cut some features of the existing product and add one core feature, which is not yet done, but it's going to make the product a little bit like different. What would be my strategy regarding the paying customers I have? What would you recommend me to do as a startup founder myself? So what would you recommend me to do in this situation? Regarding the customers, I mean, like...
Yeah. So you're worried that if you pivot, you will lose the existing customers you have? Is that?
Yeah, I'm actually fine losing them, I think. But I just wanted to maybe hear how you would go about it tactically. So would you announce the change? How would you do it? Or would you be like, what would be the tactical kind of idea?
So you have, would you say you have 20 or 30?
40. And it's the MRR is around 2,000 euros only because the price point is very low. Very low.
Yeah, that's fine. So 40 is small enough that you can contact each one in personally. And people love that. People love it when the CEO reaches out, sends them an email, sends them a WhatsApp, whatever. and everybody understands that pivots are part of the software world. And so I think that kind of the way to make sure you maintain good customer equity, customer relationship equity, is just reach out to all 40 of them individually and tell them what your plans are. And some of them will say, thanks for the heads up. I'd like to cancel my subscription because that's not what I want. Some of them will say, that's really cool. I'd like to keep my subscription. And either way, you'll make 40 people happy.
To follow up on this, as the product price, I have like the price around 50 euros. So it's like very SMB, like very, very low. I was curious about what do you think to gather feedback, A, what the customer likes, B, what the customer doesn't like in this kind of early stage. Because I had this philosophy, maybe like they're paying so little, I just focus on scaling, just getting more inside the customers, and then later maybe get some feedback. And I was thinking about some email, maybe surveys. But what do you think? What have you seen to be maybe a better or a more practical or a better strategy to get good feedback from the customers, what they like or what they don't like?
So the absolute best way is to have conversations with them. So a survey, the problem with a survey is that with a survey, you've already constrained the solution set, right? Because do you like this? Do you like that? So you've already kind of listed the solution set. And what you're really looking for is unexpected insights, right? The most valuable insights are the unexpected insights. And you're not going to get unexpected insights from a survey. And so, even though it seems daunting and seems like a lot of work to have 40 conversations, that is absolutely the best way to do it. Once you get to tens of thousands of customers, then you kind of have to do surveys because, it's too big to have individual conversations with everybody. And then the other thing, of course, is the insights that you can gather just simply by looking at the usage logs, right? So if you've got 40 customers and they're using this thing, hopefully you've got visibility into seeing which features they're using, which features they're not using, et cetera, right? Because there are insights that can come from that. So so you probably know the story about how Instagram launched as an app called Bourbon. And it was a mobile check-in app that was supposed to compete with Foursquare, which was a big mobile check-in app at the time. And Bourbon failed to get as much traction as they expected. And one day they were looking at the usage logs and seeing which features people were using on the Bourbon app. And they had all these different features that they had worked into it. And they realized that out of all the features that they'd put on the Bourbon app, the only features anybody was using was take a picture, apply a filter, and share it. And so they thought, maybe if we take out all the other features and we just take a picture, apply a filter, and share it, and then we'll change the name of the app to, I don't know, Instagram, and we'll see what happens.
But that's so counterintuitive, right? Because I have this problem, but because what you're saying is so resonating to me. Because when we started the software, we were like thinking we need 10 mega features, maybe 15 mega features. We need to make it so much everything. And it's happening what you're saying. The product gets diluted, it's not focused, and it doesn't solve a specific problem. And it's maybe harder to advertise because what do? I do everything, and it's like hard. And what you're saying is so resonating right now. And the pivot is exactly what you're saying and they're trying to do. I didn't know this story, by the way. It's a very interesting story. Didn't know that. Wow. Bourbon. Very interesting.
You can look it up. Yeah. Yeah, it was Bourbon. It was a weird spelling. It's BRBN or something like that. But you look it up. You can find it.
So, are you familiar with the Baltic investment situation? So in Baltics, typically around 100 deals get done. I mean, venture capital deals. Venture kind of. What is the situation in Silicon Valley?
Well, a lot more deals.
There's like in the thousands.
So I'm sure it's in the thousands. Yeah, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but yeah, it's a lot of deals. Just say the Baltics are awesome. I mean, I love. I've given talks in Riga at Tech Chill. I've been to Slush in Helsinki. I've been to Tallinn in Estonia. The Baltics are awesome, and I think the amount of startup activity and innovation going on in the Baltics in a pretty small population is really amazing.
So I want you to tell us, Baltic folk, and also some Eastern European folk, what would be your advice for us to also be more bold, maybe aggressive, but I wouldn't say all Americans are more aggressive than Europeans, but most cases typically they are. So to be like, better business people, like what would your advice be? Because you have been here, you know how it is, and what you see, maybe here some maybe issues in the mindset or maybe some other things.
So I don't exactly know what advice I give because I think, I think of the Baltics as being, one of the top hubs of entrepreneurship and innovation around the world. I think that, the biggest challenge you guys have is that your domestic markets are small in terms of selling, in terms of customers. But you've got adjacent markets that are nice and big. In other words, the rest of Europe, and that the startup capital ecosystem is not yet as rich as it is in Silicon Valley or maybe even London, but that takes time. So I'm not going to give any advice. I'd say keep on doing what you're doing because there have been some great startups that have come out of the Baltics, some unicorns have come out of the Baltics. So.
And the funniest story was that I was meeting them 1 week ago. There's a company called Aronas. Maybe you know them. They're making robots for wind turbine companies. And the funniest story was that Y Combinator was actually inviting them to join at 2018. And they were like, no. And then they kind of went to it and they were like, winging it. Didn't know how big of a deal that actually is, right? So it's a funny story. I went to... Yeah, it's a super funny story, but they were like shocked. But they told us at the interview that, hey, Y Combinator gave them like a big hit on the head with like some, hammer that they need to think about global sales. Okay, product market fit, not so, but like sales, hustle, get some meetings, blah, 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 etc. So about the book you have. So you have a book, it's called The Launch Path, Getting a Startup Idea to a launch-ready venture. What are some of the key insights, what you have learned that you would love to share, which are in the book or maybe not outside of the book, that us as new startups need to kind of also grasp in our head to be a better startup?
So the biggest learning that I had in my career was that during the dot-com boom in Silicon Valley, I had an awesome idea for a new startup. Awesome idea for a new software product. And I convinced a bunch of venture capitalists that my idea was awesome. And they invested $5 million into Bret's awesome idea. And I used that money to hire a whole bunch of expensive software engineers and convince them of how awesome my idea was. And we spent 2 years and $5 million building Bret's awesome idea, only to find out that customers didn't think it was that awesome. And so, in retrospect, I should have taken that $5 million. I should have just put it in the bank. And I should have spent 6 months just out meeting with customers, talking with customers, understanding their needs, understanding their points of pain, and then making sure that we were building something that was not just Bret's awesome idea, something that was actually informed by real conversations with customers. And so this is kind of something that I preach a lot in my Stanford classes and in the book, is that The biggest mistake that all of us as startup founders make is that we fall in love with our idea, right? And once we fall in love with our idea, we see all kinds of evidence around us that our idea is incredibly awesome. And we tend to ignore all the evidence to the contrary. And that the important thing is to be building something that customers think is awesome, not something that you think is awesome. And so that's kind of the big learning in my career. And so that's chapter 2 in the book.
How would you talk with the customer? Because I can imagine when you go to the customer, you can be talking in a way that the customer is like, yeah, it's cool, sounds good, and you're not getting good answers, right? What are some good ways to kind of learn if your idea is good fit for the customer?
Exactly. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go out and buy a book called The Mom Test. I'm sure it's sold in the Baltics. It's called the Mom Test, and the subtitle of the book is How to Find Out If Your Business is a Good Idea When Everyone is Lying to You. So find the book, buy the book. It's a very short, easy book. It'll cost you about €10. It'll take you about 2 hours to read. And the whole book is about how you conduct customer interviews in a way that yields meaningful insight. Yep, there it is. You found it. Yep.
I'm halfway through it. I'm halfway.
So most startup founders, what they want is affirmation, right? Well, what we all want is we all want people to tell us how awesome our startup idea is, right? We're humans. Humans want everybody to tell them how awesome their idea is. And so most startup founders do this process wrong. They go out and they interview customers, and the interview consists of, let me tell you about my awesome new startup idea. And you tell about it, and the customer says, wow, that's really cool. And then you end the conversation thinking, this is awesome. My idea is incredible. Everybody loves it. But you haven't learned anything. You haven't learned anything. And so the book is about how you conduct these conversations in a way that actually gets you meaningful insights, not affirmation. Because if you want affirmation, you can get that from your mom.
I think many companies, like I think a company called Loom and many more, have been founded from the situation where the founders have a business, like an agency, and then they pivot to software. It's kind of also my situation a little bit, and I wanted to ask you, how do you when do you allocate full attention on the product software business side? When is a good time to kind of fully switch, or you don't switch, or you still I don't know, what would be the advice for you giving to somebody who's in this, I have a service business, I have this software thing, I want to do the software more, but the software is not yet product market fit. When would be a good time to what to do, basically?
Great question, and a very common question. Because as you said, there have been a lot of companies that have started off in the services business, and then they thought to themselves, hey, it'd be cool if we productize this. And only a small percentage successfully make that transition. Because it's hard, because being a services business is a completely different thing than being a product business. And your services business is the cash cow that's paying the bills. And so you don't want to let that go until you actually have the product ready. And so it's difficult. And this is related to another thing, which is that most startups begin as a side project, right? So most startups begin, you have your day job, and then you're working on your startup idea on the side, right? That's how most of them begin. And when do you know when to quit your day job and go all in on the startup idea? So it's the same with what you're talking about, right? When do you know it's time to get out of the services business and go all in on being a product company? And I can't give you a a short, concise answer on when to make that transition, because I think it's a little different for different people depending on the situation, depending on how much money you have in reserve, and et cetera. But I will tell you that side projects never achieve escape velocity. So you have to decide at some point, you have to decide to go all in on it. And it's not going to really take off until you make that decision to go all in on it.
Right. Very rarely you can do it like on the side and then it's like scales, right? Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So side project is a great way to kind of get it going and prove it out and work your way toward PMF and all the rest of that. But it's never going to take off like a rocket ship until you go all in on it.
Again, tactical question. Let's say you are doing the thing, and you have this situation where you're the sole owner. So you have option to just do it yourself, try to hire somebody, pay salary, then build the product. And let's say in this context, you have your background is marketing and sales. You have no background in tech, like you're not a tech person. And then there's option B to find a tech CEO. And many companies in the software space, they say you need to have a co-founder that is very tech heavy, who's basically responsible for product. But there's some people also who do it without being tech kind of founders. They're just like solo founders. So what would your be advice in this situation? How do you see this play out? What is typically better kind of percentage of success rate in which scenario, or what's kind of your advice on this situation?
So this is a long running debate in Silicon Valley, is that are you better off being a solo founder, or are you better off being part of a founding team? And most venture capitalists will tell you that they prefer founding teams. And in fact, Y Combinator, for a while, they only admitted founding teams. They didn't admit solo founders at all. Now, if you go to their website, it says that they will consider either, but that their preference is a team. However, a couple of years ago, the Wharton School of Business did a study where they looked at a couple thousand different startups, some of whom had solo founders and some of whom had founding teams. And they tried to look, 5 years out, is there a difference in terms of success, in terms of outcomes? And what they found is that there actually is not any difference in terms of outcomes, that a lot of solo founded companies go on to success and a lot of co-founding teams go on to success. And the data doesn't seem to indicate that one is any better than the other. As you said, there's often this thing about, I need a technical co-founder, right? I've got an awesome startup idea, but I'm not a tech guy. And so I need a technical co-founder. And I think that is less and less true today, partly because, with these vibe coding platforms and stuff, you can build the initial product without being a tech person at all. And then if you get some traction, you get some customers, this thing seems to have legs, then you recruit in some, a technical team. So that's my thought.
It's very interesting that the study didn't found a correlation between that. I was thinking that there is a correlation between success rate, but it isn't. Wow, it's very interesting. Yeah.
At least this one study showed that there's no particular data to back up one or the other.
What has been your biggest or some of the biggest mistakes or failures that you have done or happened to you, which you could share that would help maybe some other people not make that mistake? Of course, one of the biggest one you already told me is about the 5 million in funding you told me, but maybe there are some more things you would like to share.
Yeah, there's lots. I did everything wrong. So, my role in life now is just to help other people not make the same mistakes I did. So, let's see. Another one is understand. So, especially with regard to B2B, so selling to other companies, understand the fact that there are usually several different people involved with the purchase decision. So if I'm selling a software product to other companies. There's usually kind of the user of the product. And then there's also, he's got to get sign off from his boss, and she has to understand the ROI associated with it. And she needs to get sign off from the IT security group, and they need to feel that the security of the platform is decent. And they need to get sign off from somebody else, right? And so with B2B SaaS products, there's an average of 7 different people within the organization who are part of the purchase decision. And so think about who those personas are, who those people who are going to be involved with the purchase decision for your product. And make sure you have a way of articulating the benefits to each of them, right? That the direct user just cares about making their day easier. Their boss cares about getting more done out of his or her group every quarter. The CFO just simply cares about ROI, right? All the CFO cares about is how much is this product going to cost me to buy and how much is it going to save me? Just straight ROI, right? And so the point is that the messaging you use to talk about benefits is going to be different for each one of those stakeholders. And I learned that the hard way. That I had a product where every time we went in and we did our demo for people in the marketing department who we were selling to, they absolutely loved it, wanted it tomorrow, but they didn't have the budget authority to sign the purchase order. And when we'd go talk to the people who did have the budget authority to sign the purchase order, they didn't really care about our demo because our demo was about making life better for people in the marketing department. They don't really care about making life better for people in the marketing department. All they care about is saving money. And so I think that's a huge lesson is think about all the different personas who are going to be involved with the purchase decision to buy your product, and then write up little personas about each of them and what they care about, what benefits you need to articulate to them. This is specific, obviously, to B2B. But there are some cases where even consumer, this is true. So you think about when you go into the grocery store and you see the breakfast cereal for kids, right? That it has to appeal to kids. So it has to have a colorful box and a prize inside to appeal to kids. But kids don't have credit cards. And so it also has to appeal to the moms and dads who actually make the purchase. And so then there's messaging on the box about how it's healthy and makes your kids smarter and yada, yada, yada. So even in consumer products, there often are more than one person involved with the purchase decision.
Yeah, that was a great example. Let's go to the rapid fire section. So if I go to you, Silicon Valley, I have not been there, but I have been to America 3 times. So we go to you. What would we do if you had to do an attraction with me? So what would we do?
Well, the U.S. is a very, very big place.
But let's go Silicon Valley specific.
Great. So Silicon Valley is San Francisco Bay Area. So let's see the attraction. So you need to do the famous tourist stuff. You need to go to the Golden Gate Bridge. You need to walk along the waterfront, go to Fisherman's Wharf, all the tourist stuff. But then I'm going to take you to my favorite bar that is on the coast looking out over the ocean. And we're just going to sit there and have some good California wine and look out across the ocean and talk about innovation and technology.
I love that. Number one thing you would recommend in certain sense of maybe a course, maybe a book, like a seminar. It cannot be your book. Your book is great, but what would that be in a sense for entrepreneurs to help them to be better?
So I already mentioned the mom test. That's the first one that everybody should go out and buy. Even before they buy my book, they should go out and buy the mom test. And then, so there's a book by Ben Horowitz, who's the co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz, the big, huge venture capital firm. And Ben wrote a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And it's a great book about his own career as an entrepreneur and those hard moments that any entrepreneur encounters. And I'd highly recommend it.
Got it. I'm just making notes to not forget about it. So next thing, what dessert would you eat on the restaurant by the coast?
I would have flan, which is a Mexican dessert. It's kind of like creme brulee.
Okay, cool. If you had the opportunity to learn one skill which you don't know it yet, you don't know it, but what would that skill be and why?
I'd like to play piano.
Cool. Piano's nice. So, last thing, which I'm very interested. So, you had to give one final kind of paragraph of advice to your younger self. What would you say to them if the goal for that younger self is to build a meaningful business that helps customers and is able to scale and become like a real business?
I think the one piece of advice I would give is patience. That the younger version of myself, I moved too fast and made decisions too fast, and I should have slowed down a little bit, had some patience. And I think this is especially true for young people today, because for young people today, it seems like everything is moving so fast. Especially young entrepreneurs today, right? It seems like the AI world is like changing every week and it's going so fast. And so you feel this real sense of FOMO, right? This fear of missing out that makes you go fast and feel like I gotta create $1 billion startup in the next year. And if I don't, I will be a failure. And so slow down, realize that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And think about the fact that the hottest company in Silicon Valley today is NVIDIA. And Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, is like he's like the biggest hero in Silicon Valley today, right? Jensen Huang has been CEO of NVIDIA for 32 years. 32 years. And just 3 years ago, suddenly NVIDIA became hot. So it's a long game. It's a long game. Play the long game.
Bret, thank you for your time. We right now are locking ourselves into the internet history by having this conversation online, which is going to be on YouTube and other platforms. So thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing some great nuggets. I have a full list of notes from your conversation and some cool things. I will definitely tell my team about cool stories, which you gave it to me today, so I know them. So thank you a lot. Stay sharp, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for the time. I enjoyed it. See ya.